Hello YouTubers, Joe Kersey here on Tuesday, July 1st, 2014 at 11:09 in the morning Eastern Daylight Time. Now, July 1st is traditionally a day that strikes fear, or should strike fear, into the heart of any patient encountering an encounter with the medical system of the United States in a hospital on that day, because that's when all the interns and residents change. The new ones come in, the brand new ones come in, and the ones that have been there a year advance up a notch, and the ones that have finished go hither and thither wherever they may go into the ozone to make their way in the world. Nowadays, instead of to set up their own practice, nowadays to become a hired hand, to become a paid boy or a paid girl, to be a time server, be a clock puncher. But that's not the way it was when I was a boy. and pretty much, still, what nowadays would be considered a boy. I was 23. Nonetheless, I had passed my state boards, and I was a fully licensed physician with all the powers of life and death that the state of Ohio granted me, if I could find a hospital that would be willing to let me do it in. So, here's July 1st coming around. Well, I was going to start in surgery at Ohio State on July 1st, 1975. And we'd already gotten our rotation schedule for our 12-man intern group. And I was going to start on thoracic surgery, as was a fellow guy in my group, because we were the two guys that had gone to Ohio State. So we knew the staff people, we knew the way the thoracic surgery service worked, we knew where everything was, and since that was traditionally considered the hardest service of the rotation, the first year, they told us, we're going to start you on that because you know your way around. There won't be any learning curve for you guys in terms of what to do and how things work, and personal quirks and so forth like that. So that's fine, but nonetheless, I got thinking, you don't really want to walk in there cold on July 1st and not know anything about these patients, because the thoracic surgery service would have between 60 and 80 patients on it at any given time, which meant that you'd have to interact with every one of these people at least once. Well, generally twice, but at least once every day. And so I said, you just don't want to walk in there cold, because I'd spent a lot of time doing thoracic electives and stuff. I knew, it was very demanding. You had to be right there all the time, and excuse me. So I went down there on June 28th. And I said to myself, I'm going to go down June 28th in the afternoon, and I'm going to look through the charts and, introduce myself to people and get to know, who's there and where everything is, and maybe meet some of the patients, maybe even ideally make rounds with the residents in the afternoon. Uh, and, and that way then I'll have an idea of what to expect, and people will know what to expect. They'll recognize me. And although I knew a lot of these people anyway, so that wasn't a big issue. But still, you're going in a very different role than as a medical student. And so I got down there around 2:30 in the afternoon, and my plan was, maybe I'll be out there by about, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening. And I've met people and seen some patients. And well, as it turns out, and of course I had been issued with all my kit. I had the full long, the residents at Ohio State did, and I still think they do. They had the long white coats, not the short little things that make you look like, you're a 4-year-old, but the long white coats, and I had the name tag. I looked like I was part of the staff, and indeed, as I said, I was a fully licensed physician. So at that point, and so. Indeed, I met everybody. Indeed, I did get to read to the church, and indeed, I did get to make rounds. And indeed, at the end of the rounds, I had a list. I had a list of things to do. A fairly long list too. And it took me till about 11 o'clock at night to finish that list. Whereupon I went home. I'm writing orders. I'm ordering tests. I'm sticking things into people. Yeah, I'm giving drugs. I'm being a doc. I walked in as a tourist, and I ended up being a doc, and certainly went home as one at around 11 o'clock at night. So they said, well, now tomorrow, the assumption was I would be back on the 29th. And indeed I was at 6 o'clock in the morning, ready to go. This didn't make my then wife happy at all. Well, she was never really happy about the demands of medical life anyway, but it particularly didn't make her happy about me scampering off for what turned out to be another very full day down there. And I probably got home maybe, 8 o'clock-ish, 9 o'clock-ish the second night. But, I was like, I made morning rounds. I was on the floor. I was running the floor during the day, while everybody else was off in the operating room. I went down the afternoon and got the X-rays ready for we always started afternoon rounds down looking in the X-ray room to look at all the X-rays. You have them all thrown up and ready to go. Had my pack of patient cards so I could give them to the radiology people to pull the X-ray folders. I was doing what I was supposed to do. So then they said, well, also over the 30th. What they weren't making me do was take call, because the thoracic service was one of the services where you took every other day call. You were there every other night. So you were in the hospital every other day for an entire day and then into the next day. And pediatrics was that way. The ER was 24 on, 24 off. Thoracic was every other day. The others were every third day. Every third day. But so I was getting a bit of a break, and I didn't have to take call. So on the 30th, I went in there, and they said, we're going to let you get out of here about 6. Now, you understand, I wasn't being paid for any. I was not on the clock. I mean, my pay started on July 1st. It didn't start, you know, for my wandering, my wandering eyes to appear, only to end up working. I mean, it was that's okay. Yeah, I mean, people got taken care of. That's what you're supposed to do, and it's far better than me walking in there, dead cold on July 1st. I'll tell you that right now. So, um, I was a doc. If you're a doc, be a doc. So, fortunately, my July 1st was not a particularly day of dread. I mean, now I may have alluded to and told you the story in a past video of a July 1st that was quite a day of dread, particularly, for at least 7 people, excuse me, who didn't survive it. And for the one medical intern from Yale, fresh from Yale, complete with his diploma written in Latin, which he hung up in the call room. Well, Ivy League guys, huh? In the Midwest. And this was on the pulmonary service. Now, this was my second month on the clinical rotations as a medical student, and this was in 1973, July 1973. And I probably told you this, but I'm going to tell you a little bit of it again. And as it turns out, now, the fact that 7 people decided to drop dead that day had nothing to do with him starting as a medical intern at Ohio State on July 1st, 2013. This guy has since gone on to become one of the premier, finest cardiologists in Central Ohio, and I've referred people to him. I mean, he's really, but on that day, he wasn't feeling like he was a premier anything. Well, he was when he walked in with his Yale diploma and stuck it up on the wall. But he wasn't feeling that way when he walked out of there later that night. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because 7 people just proceeded to drop dead. No, this is a service that has like about 35 people. So you're talking about, you're talking about a 20% mortality rate on one day. Now, admittedly, these were very sick people. I mean, it's almost by definition, isn't it? I mean, if you drop dead, you're very sick. And of course, the second year resident, who he fancied himself quite the now professorial type. He had one of these beards, He smoked a pipe. Yeah, this was when you could still smoke in a hospital. He'd smoke this pipe, walk around smoking a pipe. What a blowhard. Now see, the intern who's now a really good doc, he quickly learned how to not be a so-and-so, if you get my drift. But the guy with the pipe, he never changed. He was always just a sort of guy. I never sent anybody to him. Well, anyway, so I mean, this guy was very busy. We had 7 people code for various reasons, and I will say that the 3 medical students, which included me, I mean, me and my 2 student colleagues, we were quite busy pumping and thumping on chests and ventilating people the better part of that day. Well, that was just kind of coincidental, but it really was sort of a classic exaggeration. I mean, if you wanted a classic, almost Monty Python-esque story of the first day of residency and not wanting to be in the hospital on July 1st in any given year here in the United States, that would have been it. So on this note, I think I'm going to just sort of say bye-bye YouTubers because I mean, yeah, Lord knows I could keep going on about this for a long, long time. So, all righty, bye-bye now.